The deal is basically done, sales closed it, the buyer is ready to sign, everyone's already counted it towards the quarter. And then it disappears into legal review and doesn't come back for 6 weeks. Somewhere in there, a red line goes out over email, comes back with track changes from someone on the buyer side, gets forwarded to outside counsel, comes back again with a different set of edits. And now there are 4 versions of this contract floating around 3 different inboxes, and nobody's entirely sure which one is actually current. Today we're looking at the enterprise contracting problem. Why deals that are functionally agreed on can still take 3 months to actually get signed, and the platforms companies are using to get contracts out of email and into something that doesn't quietly fall apart under its own weight. Welcome back to Tech Stack Breakdown, where we pull back the curtain on the software architectures running the modern business world. Contract delay almost never comes from actual disagreement on terms. It comes from process failure, and that failure tends to show up in 3 specific places. First, version chaos. Email was never built to be a document management system, but that's exactly what most legal teams are still using it as. Every round of red lines is a new attachment in a new thread, and the source of truth becomes whichever file someone happened to open most recently. It's not unusual for a legal team to lose actual working hours just reconstructing which version reflects the latest agreed terms. Second, there's zero visibility once a contract enters legal. Sales has no idea where a deal actually sits in the approval chain. Is it with the general counsel? Is it waiting on a specific clause to get resolved? Is it sitting untouched in someone's inbox because they've been out sick? From the outside, the legal team, a contract in review is basically just a black box, and just following up over Slack becomes its own full-time job. Third, the redlining itself is just slow when it's done by hand. Every clause negotiation is a full back and forth. Send a document, wait for a reply, track what changed by eye, repeat. Sometimes across multiple stakeholders on both sides who aren't even looking at the same file at the same time. Stack those 3 problems together across dozens of contracts running in parallel, and 3 months isn't actually surprising. If anything, it's the predictable result of the process. And the cost of that isn't just an annoyed sales team. A deal sitting in legal limbo is revenue that's been earned but not recognized. A customer whose enthusiasm is quietly cooling while they wait, and in some cases a competitor who's still in the running, getting extra time to close that gap. The 3-month contract isn't a minor inconvenience buried in the back office. It shows up directly in how predictable a company's revenue actually is, quarter to quarter. So let's go through 4 platforms built specifically to collapse that timeline. Ironclad's core strength is workflow design. You build out approval chains and routing rules specific to your org. Like, this type of contract goes to legal first. That type skips straight to finance. This clause always needs a specific VP sign-off. And Ironclad enforces that automatically instead of relying on someone remembering the process. It's a strong fit for larger companies with genuinely complex approval structures and a real volume of contracts moving through legal at once. That configurability comes with real implementation lift though. Smaller legal teams sometimes find the setup more involved than they need, and the platform is priced and built with that larger company buyer in mind. If your approval process is complicated enough that people currently keep it in their heads, Ironclad is built to take that out of people's heads and into the system. LinkSquares comes at this from a different starting point. A lot of legal teams don't just need faster new contracts. They're sitting on years of old ones with no good way to search or analyze them. LinkSquares uses AI to scan an entire existing contract repository and surface things like which agreements have auto-renewal clauses coming up, or which vendor contracts share a particular liability term without someone manually rereading every PDF. That repository and analytics angle is the real differentiator. It's less about redesigning your negotiation workflow and more about making your existing contract archive actually useful. Where it's a weaker fit, is if your main pain point is specifically the negotiation and approval speed itself. LinkSquares support that, but it's not the sharpest part of the product compared to a workflow native tool. If you've got a contract graveyard nobody can search, this is built for exactly that problem. DocuSign's angle is different again. Most companies already use DocuSign for e-signature, so DocuSign CLM pitch is extending that existing relationship backward into the actual negotiation and approval process, rather than asking you to adopt an entirely new vendor for contract management. That familiarity is a real advantage for procurement and adoption. There's less internal selling required when the signature step already lives inside the same ecosystem. The honest downside is that CLM feels to a lot of users more like a strong add-on to a signature tool than a purpose-built negotiation platform. The redlining and workflow experience isn't generally considered as sharp as tools built CLM first. It's a reasonable pick if you want the lowest friction upgrade path from where you already are, less so if best-in-class negotiation tooling is the priority. Juro's focus is speed for high volume and lower complexity agreements. Think standard sales contracts, NDAs, or vendor agreements that don't need 6 layers of legal sign-off. It leans on browser-native editing and templated contracts so that non-legal teams, like sales reps, can generate and send agreements themselves within guardrails legal has already approved. That self-serve model is exactly the point. It takes routine paperwork off legal's desk entirely, instead of just making legal faster at doing it. Where its worst fit is deeply negotiated enterprise agreements with a lot of custom clauses moving through multiple rounds. That's not really the shape of contract Juro is optimized for. If most of your contract volume is repetitive and lower stakes, Juro removes it from the bottleneck almost entirely. So which one do you reach for? It depends on where your specific bottleneck actually is. For a big company with multi-step approval chains that currently only live in someone's head, Ironclad's workflow engine is the one built to take over that job. For a legal team sitting on years of old contracts with no real way to search or analyze them, LinkSquares is the one that makes that archive actually useful again. If you're already deep into DocuSign for signatures and want the least disruptive way to extend that upstream, DocuSign CLM is the path of least resistance. And if most of your volume is high repetition, lower stakes paperwork that shouldn't need a lawyer's eyes every single time, Juro is the one purpose-built to take that off legal's plate entirely. What none of these can do is make a genuinely hard negotiation easy. If two sides fundamentally disagree on liability terms, that's a human problem, not a software one. What they actually remove is the part of the delay that was never about the disagreement in the first place. The lost versions, the invisible status, the red line that only moves forward when someone remembers to hit send. Real stacks, real decisions every week. This is Tech Stack Breakdown. Subscribe.